Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome back. Today we're going to build a contact form with a dynamic select field. What that means is we're going to have a select field that has drop-down items that you can pick. But normally you have to program these in the Bricks form settings, but what we're going to do today is create a MetaBox settings page and a clonable text field so that we can manage our options here and then call those options dynamically in the select field. That means we don't have to open up the builder and make any changes, and we can control that all from the settings page. I was working on a client site and the client did not want to access the builder. They just wanted a nice, easy solution to manage their options. And so the settings page with clonable text fields seemed to do the trick here. But how I could get that into the form was a little bit of a challenge. Luckily, it wasn't too hard, and this video will show you how to do that. So let's go look at some of the prerequisites for this. What you're going to need is the Bricks child theme because we're going to be editing the functions.php. You're going to need MetaBox for custom fields. It should work with ACF. I haven't tested it, but it should. You might have to adjust the PHP snippet a little bit, but it should work. So you're going to need MetaBox. I'm using MetaBox all-in-one so that we have nice graphical user interfaces to build our settings pages and custom fields. So I recommend if you don't have all-in-one MetaBox, that's the way to go. And then we're going to build out the PHP snippet. Down below, here are the MetaBox settings, so you can pause the video and look at what you need to do right here. The settings page name is going to be property settings. We're going to create a tab on there with a key value of prop options, and property options is going to be the value. So this is the key, this is the value. So that's the tab on the settings page. We're going to create a custom text field, and it's going to be called property types. And we're going to change that ID to property underscore types, all lowercase, so that we can have a nice, easy to work with ID that makes sense to us. And then we want to make sure that this field is clonable. So come back and reference this if you need to. And then finally, the PHP snippet is really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. Nothing crazy. We're just getting the values of the MetaBox custom field in this line, initializing an empty string, and then appending our values from that setting page into this string, and then calling this function inside the Bricks Builder form, which is the fun part. That's the hard part, and the fun part is getting that data pulled over into the field. All right, so we're going to build this thing right now. I'll see you in a second in the WordPress admin. Okay, the first step is going to be to create the MetaBox setting page. So find the MetaBox icon, hover it, and then click Settings Pages. If you have any settings pages, you'll see them here. If this is your first one, this may be blank. But what you want to do is add a new settings page by clicking this button here that says New Settings Page at the top. And then we can give our settings page a title. So our title is going to be Property Settings. And then you can select a icon here, an icon, whichever you want. I'm just going to leave it the generic. And then all the settings are going to be the same, except we want to add a tab. So zoom in a little bit. There's this tab here, and we're going to add a new tab. And then you're presented with a key value. So the key is going to be prop underscore options. Prop underscore options, and the value is going to be property options. And I'm just copying and pasting this from the text I displayed at the beginning of the video. Copy and paste is always your friend. That way you don't make any mistakes. And that is all you're going to do there. Click Publish. So 3 things: the name, the icon, and then add the tabs. So if you go and look at your settings page, here, you'll have a tab for all of the options that we're going to store here, and this is where our custom field's going to go. So that's our next step, is to add a custom field to the settings page. So we're going to go back to MetaBox, custom fields, and you'll see I have a ton of custom fields already built here, but we're going to add a new one. So click Add New at the very top. And this is going to be called Property Types. I'm using like a realtor / listing example here. So properties like houses, apartments, things like that. Then we're going to add a field. So after you add the name here, come down and click Add Field. And we're just going to use a basic text field. Select text. Now you'll see the name or label is text, and the ID is this really long ID. That's no good. So before we publish and save, so don't click it yet, let's change those things. So this is going to be property types, and our ID should change automatically to property types. So this field group can be duplicate as your label here, because these are just labels. So you can keep those the same, or if you really wanted it to be unique, you could say property types group. That way there's no chance that you're doing anything that's duplicate and you don't have any conflicts. So maybe call this property types group if you want, but the label will be property types and the ID will be property _ types, like this, all lowercase, just like that. Okay. We need to scroll down and make this clonable by checking this toggle on. And we're not done quite yet. We're going to scroll all the way back to the top and go to settings and change this from post type for our location to settings page. So we came over to settings, we changed our location to settings page, and then we're going to choose that new settings page we built. But we also have to map the tab here. So you'll see this option pop up called tab. And we're going to say, hey, make this custom field go to our tab. Then we can click publish. I'll go over it one more time. We created a new text field inside this new field group called property types. We changed the ID. We made it clonable. Scrolled up to the top, went to settings, and mapped it to our settings page and our property options tab. Nice and easy. So now if we go back to our property settings, you'll see we have this property types field, and we can add as many things as we want here. We're not going to do it just yet because I want to get the PHP part out of the way, because that's really the hardest part. And then we'll come back and add these fields and map that to the form inside Bricks Builder. MetaBox makes it really easy to start writing PHP. So if we go back and look at our custom field, you'll see in our property types group, if we edit it, this is where we created that custom field. Down at the bottom, we'll have all of our PHP to go and grab those fields that we create. So anytime we add a new text field with a new item, we can go grab and loop through that with the code that they provide. So you'll see this HTML code, we don't need that. And then you'll see that this variable is wrapped inside the opening and closing tags here. We don't need that. All we need is this values variable here. So I'm going to copy that whole string like that. And I'm going to use that in my function that we're going to build here in a second. But this line right here just tells the snippet to go and find that ID in our settings page and then grab any custom field that we've added to that setting page, and then we can use those later. So that's what that does right there. Very, very handy. I love MetaBox because it outputs so much PHP code and you can see what's going on. So let's just make sure you copied that. And then head on over to the Appearance tab and then Themes. And you need to make sure that the Bricks child theme is active. So I'm on 1.9.6.1 and I've just activated the most latest child theme, and that's the one we're going to be editing. So if you don't have it installed, go download it from your dashboard in Bricks and install it, and then activate it. And then come back and come down to the theme file editor. You may have a pop-up that says, are you sure you want to do this? This is kind of dangerous. Say yes, that's what the child theme is for. We can edit the style CSS or the functions.php file to extend Bricks Builder to do some things that it doesn't do out of the box. So come over to the right and click functions.php. So what you should see on your child theme functions.php is some code that Bricks adds automatically, and then any functions you add would be down below. So I've got quite a bit going on here, but I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and give us some room to work and start writing our function. So I'm going to write this as quickly as I can and not try to waste too much of your time, but what you do is you type function space and then give your function a name. Select field list is what I'm going to call mine. And then open parentheses, close parentheses, open curly brackets, close curly brackets. Then I'm going to paste in that variable that we grabbed from MetaBox. So that's our values variable. And then come to the end and add a semicolon because we need to close that line out with a semicolon. But again, this value is just going to go grab any custom field value we have on our settings page. And we're going to take that and transform that data into something Bricks can understand inside the form and make that select list dynamic. Next, we need to initialize an empty string. So that's going to be a result string, and it's empty just like that. And then we need to do a for each loop, looping through this values variable and append each singular custom field value into this string here. So we're just going to copy this code here and paste it here, and I'll go through it. We're going to say for each, open parentheses, values as value, and so that's just saying loop through each individual value from our variables values. You could call this something like I or X or whatever, but each singular value for our list of values. That's how a for each loop works. Then we're going to open curly brackets, close curly brackets, and inside that set of curly brackets we're going to append our value and a new line onto something called results. So we have this new variable called results, and that's going to be equal to our value from our loop and a new line. And then we're going to return result. And make sure you end each line with a semicolon. When you update file, if your syntax isn't correct, it's going to not work. It'll say, hey, there's something wrong. But if everything's correct, it should say file edited successfully. I think the hardest part about looking at this is the for each and understanding that this values you're getting from MetaBox is like every single item here. So as you have all these fields here, it's going to go grab all of those individual fields, and then you need to loop through each one of those and say for each values as value is just the syntax. And then what do you want to do with each one of those? Well, we want to append it by using this dot equals and then the individual value here, which is the singular piece, whatever item we are or iteration we are on that loop, and then append a new line break there to that to give us this string that is a list of values in a string format, which is what Bricks is looking for. So that's not easy to learn. We'll look at it on the front end, what's going on. Click update. Let's say if we forgot to close our semicolon there and hit update, it'll say, hey, you got a problem. You didn't do it right, and it's saying there's an unexpected curly bracket. Well, it's expecting something to continue on here. So that error is kind of It doesn't exactly tell you, but it'll tell you at line 338 something right before that's not right. So we just need to add in our little semicolon and everything is good. All right, let's go play with this function now because this is the hard part. Now it's the fun part. Before we dive down, we need to go add some fields. So let's add some custom fields to our settings page by coming over to property settings page. And let's add some fields. Apartment, click add more. Condo, click add more. House, land, and townhouse. And click save settings. Don't forget what you called your function because you're going to need that. So we called this function select field list. So I'm going to go copy that real quick. You can always get back there by going to appearance, theme file editor, and then finding that new function you made because we're going to need that right there. So I copied it. And then let's head back into the builder. Okay, so I just blew everything away. We got a blank page. And let's see what our function's doing before we get started with the form. I'm going to add a section and a container. And inside that container, I'm going to add a code block. And code blocks are really good for testing things out, but I wouldn't run code like this PHP from the builder like this. I would store it in your functions.php, but you can test stuff out, no problem. So we're going to open a PHP tag, just like this. So open tag, question mark, PHP, question mark, close tag. And we're going to say echo select fields list, just like that. And then scroll down and hit execute code. All right, cool. Let's make this a little bigger. So we've got apartment, condo, house, land, townhouse. That's really nice. This is what we're going to want to put into our form field. Let's change that a little bit and say echo var underscore dump, open parentheses, and then wrap that whole function like this. And then we'll be able to see a little bit of data about what our function's returning. So var dump on this function here, just like that. And you'll see it's a string, 37 characters, and that's what it is. So this is kind of a, I don't know if this is a hacky way, but Bricks Builder doesn't let you query loop over form fields. They don't really let you use dynamic data in the form fields. So this is a one way that I found. The other way is to go by Bricks Forge, which makes building forms a breeze. Highly recommend it. You can run query loops on your form fields and do whatever you want. You don't have to write functions. You just use the query loop inside the builder. That's Bricks Forge Proforms. Very handy. But if you don't have that, this is another way to do it for the select field. Okay, so now we know what our function select field list is doing. We saw what it's outputting. Let's go add that to a section and to a form. So let's add a new section, throw that at the top. Inside that container, let's add a form. And inside that form, let's add a field. And this is going to be a select field. And we're going to call it property type. That's our label. And the placeholder is pick an option. So then normally you'd come down here to this options and say one per line. Well, what we're going to do is open curly brackets, close curly brackets, type the word echo, semicolon, and then we're going to return our function. just like that. Echo select field list function, and then hit save. I'm going to preview this on the front end. Look at that. That's awesome. So now, if you go back to your settings page, and let's add one more, I don't know, a ranch. Let's sell some ranches, and let's sell some farms. Let's go back and look at that. And you can see that our var dump is updating here, and there's our values. So now we want to submit one of these forms to make sure that we're able to grab the data correctly, one of these values here. So instead of sending an email, I'm going to store the form submission in the database, which is a newer functionality of Bricks Forms. So let's go to the WordPress admin, go to the Bricks settings, and make sure that you've turned on Save Form Submissions in the database, like that. Come down to the bottom and click Save. You should see this new Form Submissions tab here under the Bricks settings, and this is where all the forms will be saved. And let's go and submit a form and see what happens. Refresh the page. I'm going to submit a couple here. This is test number 1, and we're going to pick the very last one here, farms. Click send. Okay, that worked. Let's do one more. Test number 2, and let's pick one in the middle. Hit send. Come back over to your form submission tab here under Brick settings, form submissions, click refresh, and you'll see that the form ID, and if you gave the form a name, it would show up here. But we've got 2 entries for that form, so it groups the entries by form ID. So we can go into that and see them, and see that we have our property types, house and farms. Awesome. So what do we do here? What we've built with this settings page is a way for clients to manage data without having to get into the builder or, you know, change a bunch of settings around inside Bricks. And we've built them a really nice domain table. Essentially, if you're a database person, you'll recognize this is kind of like a domain lookup here. We're just storing them as a custom field inside this settings page on this tab here. We can add them, we can delete them, and we can bring them over dynamically inside this drop down here. So make sure you don't store your code like this. It's not good to run PHP from the builder like this. Put all your PHP in the functions.php file. So I'm going to delete that. And just look at how this works one more time. On our select field, we've got that options, 1 per line. And I'm not quite sure why it can take that space. Like our var dump was showing all of those options listed out with spaces. Like Bricks can interpret that as a new line, 1 per line. So I was playing around with this and figured out that that works pretty well, and we can make that dynamic. Is this like something that could change? Yeah, Bricks could change the code behind it. They could. I don't think this is an official functionality, although it does allow for some dynamic data, but you can't pick the echo return function, but it allows you to do it. So hopefully maybe Bricks will see this and they'll keep this going, because this is really powerful. You could have some really great functions running inside your form there. And I bet it would work with a radio button as well. Add a field. Let's do a radio. Do that again. Ha! I mean, come on. What more do you want? What more do you want, people? This is great. Bricks is so awesome. I love it. So yeah, now we got that, or we got that. We're powering it with this thing right here. This is why MetaBox and custom fields are so powerful. So as promised, I try to record the majority of my content is dynamic data, learning a little bit about functions in PHP, because PHP isn't difficult. You just have to take your time and learn. You need to learn for loops. You need to learn like what loops do. You need to learn how to return data and how to create variables. And if you can do those three things, I guarantee you can do a lot of damage with the functions.php. Be careful with what you're doing. With great power comes great responsibility, but I think it's really easy to learn some basic PHP. That's all we did. We got our values from MetaBox for the settings page. We created this little string, and then we iterated through our MetaBox custom fields and just appended them on. That's it. And then we returned it. So anytime we call this function, it's going to spit out whatever we're returning. So you can use this wherever you want on your website. And we just saw you can build radios, you can build selects, and have dynamic data. You don't have to get into the builder. You could use this on any form you want. And that's how it works. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe and share this with your friends. It helps drive this channel. And I like building these when I come across this cool stuff and helping people out. And if you have any comments, always feel free to raise your hand up and ask some questions. And keep it civil in the comments, or reach out to me on Facebook. If you ever need any help, I'm around to help you out. Hope you have a great rest of your day and enjoy building these forms with bricks. See you later.